Welcome to the Via Stoica podcast, where we discuss Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of living the good life. I'm your host, Bryce, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Benny and Brendan. We are here to help you apply Stoic wisdom to your everyday life, no matter what the obstacle you may be facing, whether it be work stress, relationship issues, or just the general ups and downs of life. Stoicism has something to offer us all.
Hello, and welcome to the Via Stoica podcast. I am your co-host, Brendan, and I'm here with my good friend, Benny. And we are here today for a special Valentine's Day episode. So today we're going to be talking about love and the Stoic view of love and what we think about that as an emotion and how we experience it and all those fun things. But so all you lovebirds out there, I hope you enjoy this episode. But let's get it started. Benny, how are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I love that question. I love the introduction. So, sharing some love from me to you as well. Good job that you're doing. And this is a lovely conversation, especially for this time of the year. If you're listening to this in February, around Valentine's Day, but even at any part of the year, this is a very good discussion that we're going to have, and that can add something to your life or maybe just give you a different perspective on a topic as important as love, because we all experience these feelings, and sometimes they can be good or bad, or again, how we view it. But I think it's going to be a good conversation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Benny. And I've got some thoughts. It's interesting, and I'm just going to kick it right off and say,
Yep.
When I think about it from a Stoic perspective, of course, Stoicism, we value and rational thinking and logic and reason, right? But to me, I've always kind of personally defined love, and I'd love to hear kind of like what your definition is too. But for me, love is something that makes you do irrational things. Like, I'm not thinking logically when I'm thinking about a person I love because I love, you know what I mean? Like that almost transcends the logic and reason. So that's where I actually kind of struggle sometimes a lot when it comes to these debates, because of course I always want to fall back on logic and reason, as the Stoics have taught me to do. But I know that inherently with love, like, I'm gonna do things that are kind of not logical, and I think the simple example is, anyone who's been in a relationship or married or anything like that has had a partner that was difficult one day, that was having a bad day. And because you love them, because you care about them, that you're going to give them grace, right? They're still your partner tomorrow, right? But if that same person was, someone out in public that you didn't know, a stranger, you might react to that person a little differently. So, I think we can generally accept that we do different things because of love. We don't always act in logic and reason. But I do think I try to, I guess, balance it with a bit of temperance, right? Like, I know and accept that I'm going to be, let's say, irrational or illogical sometimes when it relates to people that I love deeply. But I just want to make sure and kind of monitor that I'm not going overboard with that, right? Like, I'm going to take an extreme example, but right, if you have someone who's in a relationship and they're like, well, I love this person, so I'm going to let them physically abuse me. Like, that is not okay, right? That might be saying going too far. So that's just kind of my initial thoughts, is there just does seem to be this challenge between, reason and logic when you're talking about love.
So no, I completely agree with you, Brendan. And I think that's why the Greeks had so many different words for love. We have a limited vocabulary on, something as important. And I think the same way we look at something like anger, right? I think love can also be a momentary insanity. Where we look at anger, it can just take us from our complete cognitive way of thinking, our rational way of thinking. But love does the same. If you have these endorphins, these chemical reactions happening inside your body because you see a person, you want to be with that person, I fully agree. It completely takes you out of that irrational state of mind, and you're going to be doing things that you might not even do, and you're going to be blinded as well to certain aspects and certain qualities of a person that you would maybe from someone else not accept at all. But from this person, because you have these feelings towards them, you're going to look through it. You're just going to kind of go over it and just be blind to them. And that's one of the things that can be scary. There was a I read it somewhere where an elderly couple, they gave advice to people and they said, don't marry or don't make big decisions when you're in love. Wait until that phase goes down, and then you can see each other for who they really are. And then you can make those big decisions. Because again, love, that Eros, right? The Greeks talked about Eros, making that passionate love, that romantic love where you just want to be with each other every second of the day. That's not a really rational state of being. We want to go towards that agape, right? That virtuous love, or maybe that philia, where you have that friendship, that respect, that true honesty, but where you can also say things to each other, and where you can see people for who they are, the the positive sides, but also their weaknesses, their imperfections. And that's something that we miss when we talk about this Eros. And it's been romanticized in our modern times, where we have these movies, where we have these stories, where we can see like, all these love stories. We can say, oh, this is what I want. This sounds so perfect. This looks perfect. Look how friendly they are to each other. But as you said, sometimes you have a day where people do something that really just annoys you. And it's fine, that should be fine, because at the end of the day, we are people. But because we have such a romanticized image of love, it feels like that's the perfect state of being. We always have to be in love, but we are not talking about the right kind of love when we discuss this. It's funny because I was over the Christmas holidays. We have all these Christmas movies coming out. And I was talking to my sister about this, and it sounds perfect, right? They maybe are in a relationship with someone else, or they just meet each other and they work themselves towards Christmas, and then at Christmas they fall in love and it's all perfect. And I'd say I would love to make a movie about that, but then January the 10th or February the 30th or the 28th or maybe next year, and see where they are there, right? These movies and these images, they always end at this high, and that gives us that image of a love being perfect. But we are not in the state of mind to see exactly what's going on. We are looking at life through a rose-tinted filter. Everything is beautiful, right? We're walking on cloud nine. And that feeling isn't a bad thing, right? Because we feel good about ourselves. And that's kind of the underlying danger of it, because we look at life from a different side. We make irrational thoughts, right? We make these decisions that might haunt us later on, because at this moment we had this moment of, let's call it, romantic or positive insanity. And we make decisions that might bite us later on because we just didn't think them through. So there are different sides of love, and I think we should really separate them. But when we talk about this romantic love, especially around Valentine's Day, which isn't something that I tend to celebrate as much. When I was in a relationship, I like to, if I want to surprise someone, and I like to do it just off the cuff. So I don't like these institutionalized holidays with this. But and it is nice to be romantic, and it is nice to do something for someone else. But from this state of mind, it is kind of dangerous, right?
No, those are great points, Vinny, and I love how you brought up too that how the fact that love can kind of blind us in some ways. Like we don't necessarily see, when we love someone and we know we love someone, we might always be looking at them in a positive light, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's at least good to be aware, right, that those perspectives and that can kind of shift. But I also think that's really good what you brought up too about kind of like our perception, right? Like we romanticize love, whether that's in movies or things like that, but our perception of the fact that love is always supposed to be fantastic and always supposed to be joyful and happy. And I really think that at the core of love, is the fact that you're going to have difficulty and challenges, right? I mean, I think parenting is the easiest thing. I'm not a parent, but I've heard plenty of parents talk about the fact they love their kids, no matter what their kids are doing. If their kids are drawing all over the walls and breaking stuff and causing havoc and being just a nuisance, they still love their kids. It doesn't matter. And so that's where I think that like people try and this idea that we tell ourselves, oh, a romantic relationship is only supposed to be love and flowers and chocolates and wonderful things. And it's not. You love someone and you marry someone because ultimately you hope that you guys are going to make each other better people. And improvement, and as we've talked about on this podcast hundreds of times, is challenging, is difficult. So I think that this idea too, like what you brought up, is important, that it's not just about, the warm fuzzies are great, But there's in love, whether this is a romantic relationship or a friend or a family member, you're going to have difficulties, you're going to have challenges, but it's the love is the reason why you look past those things and you keep sticking at it and going for it. But I'd love to, like what you brought up about the different types, like obviously this love that you have for your children, your family, the love you might have for a friend or a colleague, and then of course the love you have for your partner. All that is going to be different and operate differently. So I think it's good to understand that and differentiate that, because you're right, our language does limit us a little bit with just using the word love, and because those things are different and they impact us differently. So I do think, and it's weird, like as the Stoics, as they talk about love and community, and obviously that's a very important concept to them of kind of living amongst each other. And I do think that there is this connection that happens with love, and whether that's you're showing love to someone, right, through acts of service, right, or you have feelings and emotions towards someone that you love because of them being that close to you. It is still like the way we connect. The way we connect is through love and compassion, and that is very important too. So there is kind of this weird, there's two sides to me. You have the romantic love for your partner, and then you have this like just general love of humanity. And I think Stoics are supposed to love the world generally, accept people for who they are and where they are. But and that's why I love the phrase lead with love. Like you should start your day with love. You should always lean into love. When in doubt, show people grace. Like these are ways that you act in love. And I do believe that is what a Stoic should do. I think that is the natural thing to do. Love is something that we have naturally, but I don't think we naturally have hate. I think that comes with time. So to me, I do think it is a natural state that we're supposed to be in. And of course, that is, again, something the Stoics lean on a lot is nature. So, but what do you think about that as far as like love being a natural emotion or a natural feeling?
I think in the perfect world, and the Stoics always, they look at the sage, right? They talk about ourselves as well. We want to reach that perfect situation where we can have a eudaimonic, peaceful life, and in that situation, we should be able to love everything. Right, we should be able to, even people you don't know, even people who might not be treating you right in the sense that you think that you should be deserved to be treated. We should still be able to love them because they are human beings. They might be flawed, right? They might be ignorant of what the right thing to do is, but then it becomes our task to show them what the right thing to do is. So, in that right sense, and that's where the Stoics have this concept of oikeiosis, which is where we all become this part of the great universe, of the rational, the rational universe, the logos. In that sense, love is all around us, right? And that's a great little song as well. Love is all around us, but it is. So when we talk about the love that the Stoics would talk about, would be a love that you could share to everyone, no matter who they are. Because we're all part of the society, all part of who we are. Could you even imagine a world like that where we would be able to love everybody who would be around us, everybody on the planet? That's a very difficult thing, right? Because there are people who don't see it that way. They feel that they have an ego, they have certain wants and desires, and they place those wants and desires above other people, maybe even above themselves. They don't treat themselves with that respect. So first, we have to really look at the kind of love that we're talking about. And the Stoics have this agape, which is the virtuous kind of love. And I really like to refer to the three types of friendship that Aristotle talks about. You have the friendship of pleasure, the friendship of utility, and the friendship of virtue. And this is also a little bit with that kind of love. We can also describe those with that love, right? And a friendship of virtue, or a virtuous love, you would be able to do anything for everybody without having to need something in return. I could do an action for you without putting it on a ledger saying, oh, I've done something to Brendan. For Brendan, now he needs to do, I'm going to expect something back. No, you just do something because that's what you do. You do something because you feel like I can help someone, or maybe just give someone 5 to 10 minutes of my time. And that's something that really would be the pure kind of love that we wanted to show to humanity, but to ourselves as well, right? They have a world, part of love that is called Philautia. I think I'm just pronouncing that wrong, but that's that kind of self-love. where we really truly love ourselves first. Again, that's the basis of all of this. If you can't love yourself, how can you love someone else? So first we need to share that to ourselves. And then we have that philia, that love, that friendship, that, where philosophy, the love of wisdom. We have to be curious. We have to love that as well. And that's where we can really build it out to something so much bigger than what we see in these movies and what we see in the people that are craving that sense of love. And I think the paradoxical view of craving that love that we talked about before is also what is making people so lonely, because they lack that sense of love. They lack that feeling of just being so connected with someone that they are the same being, that when they are apart from that, they feel utterly alone. But if you have that love that we're talking about, the virtuous love for anyone around you, you're going to be, you're never going to be alone, because you know that you are connected with everybody around you, and everybody around you is there for you, and you can be there for them. So I always like to say, some people could be utterly alone in the midst of a crowd, and others can be completely at peace by themselves. And that's where we've got to start working towards that love for ourselves, but then working towards that virtuous love, where you can love everybody, even, as you said, what parents do with their kids. Even if they draw on the walls, you can still say, okay, this is not the right thing to do, but he didn't know, she didn't know. Now it's my task to teach them, to show them the right way of living. But I still love them. And that's exactly why I want to teach them, because I want to show them what the right way to live is. And that's our duty as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's great, Benny. And I think, it kind of hit me as you were talking. It's this idea that you love the person, but you don't have to love the behavior. You don't have to love what they're doing in that moment. And I think that is, first, what you said about self-love is super important. I think that's basically how we learn how to care for others is by caring for ourselves, is by loving ourselves and showing ourselves that affection and attention that others deserve as well. And that truly, I think, what love is giving someone your time, your affection, without expectations of receiving anything in return. And I love how you brought that up to kind of the expectations. But yeah, I do think that is one piece, though, where people get kind of tripped up, is separating the behavior from the person. We like to say that, oh, that person's, they're always angry. Well, maybe they do struggle with anger. But that's an emotion, right? That's not the person. So you can love the person, but not love the emotion, not love when they're angry. But them as a human being it's still them, right? So I do think that's, an important piece, because I've made that mistake. I've said that, someone has behaved a particular way, and I go, wow, they're such a jerk. I don't want to be friends with this person, or, associate with this person or whatever. But that could be a one-time moment. That could be a thing where it's just in that moment they're acting that way. I heard a story recently where there was a guy on the train, and he had in New York, and he was on the subway going back home, and his kids were kind of just like being a nuisance, and they were being difficult, yelling and screaming, and someone else on the train said, hey, your kids are really being a nuisance. Can you control them or do something about this? And he's like, I'm really sorry. We're just going back home from the hospital. My wife just died, and the kids just lost their mother, and I don't think they really know how to process it. So right now they're just, being emotional. And so you just don't know. I mean, I know it's this age-old thing, you don't know what people are going through, but you truly don't. So at the end of the day, we are made for one another. Human beings are made to connect with one another. We're made to support one another. So this idea of love feels like something we're supposed to do. Like, Benny, you talk about duty a lot. I do think it is our duty to give love when we can, right? When we have some to give, we should give it. Whether that's to a stranger or to our family member, it's still a good thing. So I think that is, important, is recognizing that we have off days, we have bad behaviors, we do things that aren't always acting in virtue. Even as Stoics and people that study Stoicism, I act not virtuous from time to time. But that doesn't mean that, we stop loving that person, or we stop caring for that person, or, things like that. Like, we're, as human beings, we all deserve that.
And I think that builds on it, right? Because we mustn't forget that we are on a journey, that we are making progress. And sometimes we want to already be there. We want to be in that perfect state. We want to reach our goals, and that can build up with that frustration. But if we love our imperfections, if we really embrace those, then we can also see that we have already progressed so much further from where we started. And that's what we also have, our duty to show to other people. And I like how you brought up attention. And we had an interview with Eric Weiner a few weeks back, and about his book, The Socrates Express. And in that book, he talked about a lot of philosophers. And he mentioned Simone Weil. And from that philosophy, she was all about paying attention. And there it said, like, attention is love. So if I'm spending time with you, I'm, paying you attention. I'm giving you attention. That's love, because I'm giving you my time. I'm giving you my all of my attention to you. And if you can give people time, but if you don't give them your attention, that's a sign of disrespect. I'm here. But if you give them real, true attention, and that's something that people sometimes need more than just anything else. Sometimes it's just having to be someone to listen to, someone to support you, someone to be there for you. And so when we talk about how to love, and from a Stoic point of view, it's very simple. It isn't that complicated as we think. Sometimes it's just being there, and sometimes it's more active, right? Sometimes we need to, teach maybe a little bit the harder way, not physically, but just being a little bit more strict. And that's something that I sometimes feel is missing in our society, where we just try to shield people, especially kids, from any negativity, any criticism. But critique or negative feedback, or feedback in general, which a lot of people think of as negative, can only help you grow. So once we start to train or teach our the people around us that it comes from a good heart, I want to help you grow. I want to see that you've done something that isn't right, that shouldn't be done. Let me show you the right way, and let me teach myself the right way as well, because I make mistakes. So when we talk about this true love, it's this interconnectedness that we have. You teach me, I teach you. You show me things, I show you things, and that's the real sense of humanity that we get. And that's where the Stoics, when they talk about the logos, and when they talk about what part we play, it's that pure interconnectedness with everything, right? With nature, with the people around us. And that's where we should focus our attention more to love. We will always have that, but we will experience that kind of love, right? That's something just happens in us, the same as when we become sad or angry. But then we have to try. And I think with love, it's even more difficult than with something like anger. Because with anger, we can apply a pause. We can see what's going on. But with love, because it's just such a overwhelming chemical reaction that's happening in our body, it's very difficult to pause it. It's very difficult to say, I don't care if this person doesn't write to me. So it is very difficult. But if we focus on just doing what we should be doing, in a sense of being a human being with other people, then we can really expand that sense of love, and then we can get more used to it, to other people as well. And at that moment, when we pay that attention, when we send out that love, and we will share that love, when those people or those things leave us, at least we've spent the best time with them, right? We've been there, and we've done everything that we've loved them, and we've loved ourselves. And I think that's a key point as well when we talk about love, that we can really be there, appreciate them, be grateful for them. And that's something that is powerful from this concept of pure virtuous love.
Oh yeah, Benny, that I love this, what you were saying with the, true love is the interconnectedness. Like, that is what connects us. And I think that was the point I was trying to make earlier, but you just obviously did it in a much better way. So thank you for that. But yeah, I do think that is, the thing, right? It is all about love. And, I'm not the first person to say this, right? All we need is love. Love is my religion. Like, these are things that people have been talking about for a long time. And yeah, I do think that, and it's funny too, with love, I feel like as you start, there was a time in my life where I wasn't as, let's say, lovey-dovey. Now I consider myself a hugger. Like, I hug people often, because it just feels better. It's nicer. It's more enjoyable experience for me. And as that has grown, like, as I've been loving myself more, expressing love and appreciation to other people around me, like, that just grows. That feeling grows in me. So again, it's like anything else, it's a muscle. As you use it, it becomes stronger and easier to tap into. And it's allowed me to then, the downstream effects of this are like, my capacity for empathy grows a lot more, right? I can see things from other people's perspectives in a much better way. So this, I really just, if you ever, when you feel yourself, and this is what I try and do, and this is maybe some version of a pause as it relates to love, but I pause when I start to feel the opposite. When I start to feel hate or annoyance or agitation with someone, that's when I pause and go, okay, what am I actually angry at? What am I actually upset with? Because I don't hate the person. I don't hate them, because hate is such a strong emotion. I don't wish them ill will, but I do wish if they would stop doing what they're doing right now, right? The behavior they're doing that's annoying to me. I do hate that. So I think getting better with kind of stopping ourselves when it comes to hate, because that is, hate being the opposite emotion inherently drives out love, I think. So whenever we start to feel those sort of emotions that associate with hate, or feelings that associate with hate, that's the pause to take and go, wait a second, let me separate this out. It's not the human being I hate, it's the behavior. But yeah, it's been a really, really good conversation, Benny. I've definitely gotten a lot more clarity when it comes to this idea of how to use love in a rational way, like this emotion that inherently is irrational. How do I bring logic and reason into it? But yeah, this has been really good, Benny. Anything else you want to add before we close it out?
No, I really loved this conversation, just to use the pun, but no, I really enjoyed it. And it's good to have these conversations with people. And again, these are concepts that we need to learn to define for ourselves. The same thing we talk about, we talk a lot about anger and about frustration and about all these negative things, but love is also a passion, and we need to understand what it is, where the triggers come from, how we can, again, I like your example of how to apply that pause, right? So when we feel like, oh, I'm really in love with someone, let me just wait. Let me just work through this, because we tend to want to ride that wave. We tend to just want to be, because it feels so good. But let me just take a step back. Let me just feel and see what is happening here. And I think that is really important to do with all of these concepts that we're talking about. And this is why we would really like to motivate people to create their own philosophy of life. And part of that is to define and to know what words and what concepts mean to you. The same thing with love. What does love mean to me? How do I really love another human being, or even the things, the world around us? And that's something that is really important. And then we can learn from, Marcus Aurelius. One of the first things, the first word that he entered his lessons from is adopted father Antoninus. He said compassion, right? Show compassion and empathy on all of those things, and then we can really create a nice, connected world together. And just, I always think if everybody would just apply this, just 10%, just a little bit, 10%, a little bit more, the world would be a completely different place, right, Brendan?
Absolutely, Benny. Thank you for having this conversation today. I hope that this inspires you to not only love yourself a little more, but love others and express that to them. Let them know, because that's one thing too I don't think we necessarily do enough of is to let people know that we love them. So in this season of love, definitely give it a go, give it a try. If you haven't told someone you love them recently, try that out. But and to end with Marcus Aurelius in his famous words, if you want to be loved, then just love, then do it yourself, right? Start the process. So that's it for today.
That's the perfect ending.
There we go.
Thank you for listening to the Via Stoica podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Your feedback will help us reach more like-minded people on the journey to self-improvement. If you want to get in touch with us or find more information, you can go to viastoica.com, your one-stop platform for all things Stoicism and living better. And remember, virtue is the only good.